Thank you so much for joining us today on Connect and Collaborate, where we come together each day to introduce you to our network of business and community leaders and to discuss important issues that impact business in Colorado and the region. I'm Tammy Schaefer, your on-air producer, and this week, our focus is on secondary education, and we want to tell you that this week's shows are sponsored by Talent Found. Talent Found connects students, job seekers, workers, and businesses with the programs, tools, and resources to design their own unique paths to career and business success. Talent Found is championed by the Colorado Workforce Development Council and powered by Talent Found charter affiliates. Talent Found, discover ability, develop talent, and find success, and you can learn more about them at talentfound.org. Now, today, our guests are from the Colorado Community College System. We have Sarah Heath. She's the State Director of Career and Technical Education. Sarah, welcome.
Thank you, Tammy.
And Dana Anderson, the Program Director for Business and Marketing at the Colorado Community College System. Dana, thank you for being here.
Thank you.
So we have kind of an exciting week this week. You just did a presentation with the Colorado Secondary Business Education Advisory Meeting. So you're kind of getting everybody up to speed on what's happening with career technical education, and how businesses can get involved. Am I right?
Definitely. And just for those of you that are out there that don't have your own student in secondary and aren't 100% familiar with career and technical education, when many people were in high school, it was referred to as vocational education. And what we've done very intentionally over the last 20 years is really tied to business and industry and what those in-demand areas are that can actually make our Colorado economy more vibrant.
Right.
And it's a national-wide effort as well. But for us, what we've really tried hard to do is to tie in what's happening in the classroom to what happens outside of the four walls of the classroom, so that students get to meet business and industry professionals, but also so that business and industry professionals know that they have a place in the classroom as well. And that might not necessarily be a physical space where they have to take time and effort away from their workplace, but how do they form curriculum? How do they help with projects? Because the day of students doing things for the sake of doing them are over. They want to know the context, and they definitely want to know how it's going to help them with their future. And so today we had an awesome opportunity to bring in some business and industry professionals in the spaces of marketing, finance, and overall business. And so Dana has done a really good job of being a great leader when it comes to coalescing these people. We're also very thankful to the Colorado Business Roundtable for being our champion of this event, as well as many of the people that you mentioned with our Talent Found network, because we're one of the charter affiliates as well. So Dana, do you want to talk a little bit about what happened this morning with all of our wonderful business partners?
Sure. So basically, I'm the program director for business and marketing. So in career and technical education, we have different sections, and we have a manufacturing, healthcare. Mine is overall business and marketing, which is a huge umbrella. So we are looking at really focusing on a secondary business education core pathway. So we've never done this before, but we brought together an advisory committee for business specifically to look at our core pathway in secondary. So we invited people that have expertise in finance, accounting, entrepreneurship, marketing, and all business aspects. And we brought them together today and really focused on sort of where we've been and what we're doing in high school business education at this point and where we want to go. So then we were able to ask them, we brought together, and we had 2 hours. We said, what do we want to do specifically to really get these people involved and get their expertise out? So we developed some competencies, and we had broken in different areas. And we said, okay, we know we're looking at business, and most of our business students go on to post-secondary. And what do they need to be successful in post-secondary business education programs? And earlier in the year, we brought together all of our post-secondary and some secondary teachers and professors, people in those fields, and they gave us sort of an outline of some of the classes that they include in their core. Basically, we're trying to get those vetted and get some information from business people to see if we're headed in the right direction. So what we did is we grouped them into different areas, and we looked at these competencies, and we had them discuss at tables what they thought and where we needed to go, and what are our students missing, and how can we help them the most. And they did a great job. And this is a lot of work for 2 hours, so we're just really hitting the tip of the iceberg. But we were really encouraged because these people are so engaged and understand and brought in new techniques that we're not using currently. Like we talk a lot about, there was an article in the Denver Post a few days ago about business operations and how all these new jobs are coming out with data analytics, and what do we do to prepare our kids for those? And in the next 10 years with AI coming in, how are things going to change? What do our students need to know? And a lot of those types of things came up, what do we need to do in marketing? And then lastly, how do we need to do a capstone to bring all these core competencies together? And there was a team that was working on that as well. So obviously we didn't get all of the work finished, but we will move on and have more collaboration. They're very excited to do this work.
Well, this sounds so great because you really need to have the businesses involved in the conversation now, because the jobs are changing so quickly, the technology is changing so quickly, that in order to know what you're training the students for, you really need the businesses involved.
Right, and what we're also hoping to do is that there's other statewide initiatives that are happening at the same time that are truly business-led. And so how are we, like Dana mentioned, really putting education and business together so that it's not necessarily education coming and saying, these are all the great things I'm doing, aren't they wonderful?
Yeah,
and not
necessarily
exactly, and not necessarily business also saying, this isn't working, why aren't you doing this? And learning how to collaborate and work together to solve the problem. And so this is a great example of that, as well as our Pathways work with the Colorado Workforce Development Council and all of our other intentional partners with our different sector partnerships too. And one thing that's really cool for us is in Colorado, we're housed at the community college system, but we work with career and technical education from middle school all the way to completion of a credential of value, whether that's a certificate, degree, or a way to transfer to a four-year institution, and then career placement or military placement. And not every state has that opportunity to impact a student from 7th grade to completion and placement. And so we always are like, we have to frame that, because people hear community college system and think we're only talking about post-secondary students when we're talking about everybody.
Well, you've got them from 7th grade on.
Correct.
Yeah, because we're hearing a lot about the programs now that, like, for example, the P-TECH, and where that's taking high school up to maybe 6 years, but by the time they're done, they have not only their college diploma, but associate's degree in an actual skill, right? To get them launched. So now you're backing it up even to 7th grade. So they maybe define their path a little bit more, or know what their options are at the minimum.
Right, and so we've been pretty intentional with working with what we call service areas. So each community college has local school districts that they support by sake of our geography of where all the colleges are located in our state. So last year we had very intentional conversation about what does a student take in middle school, what do they take in high school, and then what do they take in college that actually prepares them for an industry recognized credential or a college degree or a placement within industry, and how does that roadmap really impact other things that they do, like their meaningful career conversations they're having, or even their 6-year plan for graduation. And all of that is just based on the conversation and exposing them to careers they may have never heard of before. And how do we use middle school as an exploration time?
Yes, I like that, the focus on careers you might not have heard of, because I feel that I didn't know more than maybe 4 or 5 options when I was coming out of high school. And so to have that idea that here's things I can do, and what the skills I'm learning, the abilities that I'm recognizing in myself can be applied to, A through K.
Right.
That was like my little idea for numbers of options, but like that many.
Right.
It's broader.
Yeah, and our career and technical education programs, they're also really very integrated, because they have to have 3 different types of things. So they'll have a curriculum, and they'll also have a student service organization. And a lot of times that's what everyone knows about. They heard about FBLA or DECA or TSA, these student organizations. And then we also have to have a work a work-based learning component. So it really gives you a chance to find out what you want to do and what all of it entails. So what is an accountant, and what does an accountant do, and what do those careers look like? That type of
What
thing.
does the job actually look like? Not just apparently they do math all day.
Yeah, and then we get them out there either working or doing job shadows, and they have a lot of those different types of opportunities.
That's wonderful.
And one of the cool things that Dana's trying to do with this project also is that we focus so much on students because obviously they're our product. But what about the teachers as well? So trying to get businesses to host teachers in externships because teachers, counselors, administrators, even parents only know what they know. So if you only had one career your whole life, that's the career you're most likely going to talk to your student about. So how do we get them out there physically in business and do an externship just like we would do with students to expose them? Because that will impact more students than sending out individual students themselves.
They can experience it, they can see it, and then relate to their students better of what would that career look like for you.
Right.
And most of our teachers from career and technical education, I mean, they all have to be certified, and they have to have job hours. So a lot of them, especially in business, come from industry, which is awesome. But at the same time, I mean, they need to keep up their experiences, and to have teacher internships is another way to do that.
That's a great point, but I'm also thinking, does that then give a teacher a little more idea, like I said, of what the job is like, so they can identify when a student would be skilled or that would be a good fit for them?
Right, I think so.
To encourage them,
especially
not to put them on some track, but to encourage them.
Right, and really for us, we have an intentional focus this next year on school counselors because they impact the lives of so many students, and recent research has shown that the bulk of prospective parents and students gain their information and insight about programs from their school counselor. So how do we help them experience different work environments in all of our sector areas so that they have a better understanding? Business is really great because it's one of our high demand areas and it goes across industries. But I think there's a misconception about particular industry clusters, especially in the skilled trades areas. So how do we kind of debunk some of those myths and rumors by actually physically getting them out to these employers so they can see what students would be capable of doing? Because all those pieces around creativity and things like that are definitely part of manufacturing processes now.
Yes.
They're definitely part of, we have a really strong film and media industry in our state. So how are we exploring those pieces with students at an earlier age?
Great. Can you give me some examples maybe of programs, how they're developing, how some of these businesses are working together, and what you're seeing come to fruition?
So I think that one of the great things is you mentioned PTech and some models like that. We also have where that's just organically happening, where we have what were called sector partnerships through our Workforce Development Council in our different workforce regions, where they've identified an actual area of employment that's critical to that geography.
Okay.
So for example, in Colorado Springs, there's a very strong emphasis around cybersecurity, information technology, and then different things around Department of Defense just because of where they're physically located. So we're seeing some amazing partnerships around that with the National Cybersecurity Center, the different school districts there. And all of that's just happening because they know that they have a need and they don't have enough people to fill that need. And we're seeing that happen more than not in lots of different areas of the state. And even like a place like Denver that has access to lots of different types of employment, you see even individual high schools kind of identifying like who are they geographically close to where they can get students easily in and out of work-based learning experiences. Because transportation is a barrier for a lot of these experiences as well. And then I know Dana was most recently in the classroom and had some. Actually, she's had some of her alumni here with us today talking about their experiences. And so, just kind of how those different pieces play into the program they went into, and then now the businesses that they have access to because of that.
Well, it was really exciting too. I came in contact with my former students. I was a teacher for 9 years, and to watch on LinkedIn as my students get jobs, and I was mainly a marketing emphasis teacher, and a couple of the people here were in marketing positions, and there was accounting. But I think the interesting thing too is when a student has an experience like a job shadow, and they come out of that and they just get so passionate and understand what the real world is and what it really looks like. And even just, not that a job shadow is not a big deal, but even if it wasn't an externship, internship, or a big experience, even small experiences make a big impact on these students.
Well, yes, because I think when they're in school and you're in that education routine and you're just going to class and you're learning these things, all very important. But to be able to imagine what work life would be like,
right,
to be able to get them out there and experience that, I bet makes a world of difference.
Well, I think it was interesting. So we had two people here, and they are entrepreneurs. They have their own business, and it's a print shop. And they were in my class probably 7 years ago, I think, and went through our business program. And we're in entrepreneurship, and they actually entered an entrepreneurship contest and won. And so they got some backing from Otterbox, and they now have a business, and it's sustainable, and it's downtown. And it's really interesting. It's called More Collection. So they are sort of the proof is in the evidence there.
Does it seem like the way things are moving in education and getting kids involved with maybe identifying a career or really acquiring those skills for that potential career earlier on, seems to open the door for entrepreneurship wider?
Right. Definitely. And I think that just even like our culture has really helped with that too, because you have all sorts of student contests that are on television now where students can see themselves, where in the past it was only like run a lemonade stand. That's the only way you can be an entrepreneur when you're a small kid. But another one of our business partners that was here, Rich Martinez, who is in charge of Young Americans Bank, they call it Youth Biz. And so they have students, super young, amazing kids. They're actually producing products that like blow your mind that these are not produced by people that are in their 30s. And they go through their whole marketing sales. They do online sales. They go to farmers markets. And it's really amazing what students can do when they're empowered to do so. And I think that that's why I love career and technical education so much, is that we have the opportunity to empower teachers, to empower students. And students see the context of why they're learning a concept. So everything Dana ever taught her students, now she has these alumni coming back that are saying, wow, what a valuable experience, because now I can run my own business. And we feel very fortunate that we can do that, where perhaps maybe in some other content areas that's not necessarily as natural of a fit.
Okay.
So I think that what's really great is just those alumni stories of students coming back and helping other students know that you might think that you're only a high school student, but you have so much power and you have so much creativity if you just harness it and put it to work.
We're talking today with Sarah Heath and Dana Anderson from the Colorado Community College System. And we're discussing kind of the results of this great presentation you were able to do with the Colorado Secondary Business Education Advisory Meeting, getting those businesses involved. How do businesses see how they need to be involved or what their opportunities are?
And I think a lot of that, we're really fortunate that we have a lot of career and technical education and business champions that are really kind of helping us share that word. Because I think that that is one of those kind of cultural things that we're hoping to kind of debunk as well.
Yes.
That, business and education should be separate, where really education is about the community and how the community can come together. And so I think that this has provided a great opportunity, and then just reaching out through networks, which is a skill we're trying to give students. So it's great that we can emulate that for them by having events like this. Because in the past, I think that a lot of times schools were seen as a place just for educators and just for parents, not for business community members.
Right.
If they weren't one of those two types of people.
We also want to empower our teachers because they also have advisory committees for their programs. And we want to, this is the first time we've ever done a state advisory, because we do have school advisories, but we also want to help empower the teachers and then create a state advisory for people who have a little more difficulty. And so we can also build the advisories together and kind of communicate more. And I feel like this advisory the people are very excited to get involved, and we give them a lot of different options. You know, if they would like to work at our level with what's going on here with curriculum and that different types of things, job shadows and mentorships. They can work with our career and technical student organizations. They can help us with competitions and judging and mentoring in classrooms. So there's a lot of different opportunities.
And I think that what's great about what Dana just said is that there are multiple time commitments, because I think a lot of times too a business person is just worried because when you think about it, they're running a business. They need to make a profit. They need to work with their employees. How much time and talent can I possibly give in my limited time?
Right.
So that's what's great. All those different things she said go from like low touch to super involvement. And so what we see too is that business and industry professionals, what we're trying to help them understand is there's a spectrum of opportunity where we can be as little of amount of time as possible, like a couple of hours, all the way to do you want to host a student and have them be one of your employees as well. So we are just really excited that we're actually seeing a lot of momentum around this and a lot of really great business champions that are pulling in their networks to really help figure out a way that we can collectively help impact our talent pipeline issues and get students more aware of career opportunities.
And in the end, too, it's really good for businesses. I mean, they can, you know, get these students. A lot of times they employ the students, and they can learn from what we're doing as well. And so it's a great both ways.
Do you see businesses perhaps in an industry, multiple businesses getting together to promote that industry and target it?
Yes. So we're super fortunate that a lot of our industry associations are really on board with supporting our different sector initiatives. So just yesterday, we have a wonderful partnership with the Colorado Springs Home Builders Association, and their executive director, Renee, and I were talking about just the natural connection between, you have people that have skills that have been in the industry for sometimes a very long time.
Right.
How do they mentor the students and the teachers, and how does it become more of a whole community effort around the fact that they're not necessarily targeting students to, you have to be our employee. We just want to give you skills and make you better for our whole community. And I think that that's what we're seeing is around industry associations and sector partnerships, where people, it's not necessarily competitive for them, like I have to get you from my business, because they're representing so many businesses.
And you can see those same relationships and efforts in multiple industries, maybe the aerospace, maybe manufacturing, all of it.
Yeah, definitely. And that's one thing that I love about being in Colorado is we have very strong industry like industry associations, and so willing to give their time and talent and effort. And so many of them are connected into the different pathways work that is happening. But then also they're always willing to give their time. And like Dana mentioned too, with our schools actually having advisory committee, what we're really trying to be cognizant of is that we don't also want to fatigue industry by having everyone ask and tapping on the door saying, "Dear network, please come," even though you're just at a meeting that was very similar.
Right.
So how do we empower our teachers and our communities to leverage their industry associations and be part of their convenings that are already happening? So we've had some great success with that with the Colorado Technology Association, and also CAMA, so our manufacturing association, where we've been invited to be part of their agenda, so we don't have to ask those professionals to come to another meeting.
Right. Yeah, it can be a little bit more of all one stop, in that the message is targeted for everyone who needs to hear it or be a part of it. Right.
Right. Definitely. Yeah, so and one thing that we are really in for listeners out there, if you're part of an association and you haven't heard, we would love to be reaching out, because I think that that's part of it too, is, you know, you become like the best kept secret, right? And then people, once they find out, they're like, "Oh, I wish my student had this opportunity," or "I wish I would have known I could have participated."
Right.
So if there's a sector area that when you were listening just now and you're like, "Well, why aren't they talking about my association?"
Exactly.
We would love to be part of those different pieces, and we're really looking to expand so that we can have teachers really work with those employers, but also not go ahead and knock on everyone's door when we can be part of someone else's meeting.
Wonderful. And find out more, you can go to, it's cccs.edu. So that's Colorado Community College System. You'll find them just by Googling as well. To find out more information, we're talking today with Sarah Heath, State Director for the Career and Technical Education, Colorado Community College System, and with Dana Anderson, Program Director for Business and Marketing for the Colorado Community College System. We have been focusing on education this week, secondary education here on Connect and Collaborate, and we're proud to share that this week of shows is sponsored by Talent Found. Talent Found makes an effort to connect students and job seekers, workers, and businesses with the programs, tools, and resources to design their own unique paths to career and business success. Find out more at talentfound.org. Stay with us. We'll be back with more. We're so glad you're staying with us today here on Connect and Collaborate. This week we're focusing on secondary education, and our shows this week are sponsored by Talent Found. Talent Found connects students, job seekers, workers, and businesses with the programs, tools, and resources to design their own unique paths to career and business success. Talent Found is championed by the Colorado Workforce Development Council and powered by Talent Found charter affiliates. Talent Found, discover ability, develop talent, and find success, and you can find out more at talentfound.org. So today we're talking with the Colorado Community College System. Sarah Heath is the State Director for Career and Technical Education. Sarah?
Hi, thanks, Tammy.
Glad to have you here. And Dana Anderson, Program Director for Business and Marketing with the Colorado Community College System. So
thank you.
Thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate it. And, you know, in the previous segment, we were talking about, you know, how to engage business and industry in this career and technical education. But let's focus this segment a little more on how do you get all of Colorado connected to all of these programs, to, you know, you've got some great collaboration going on, and how does everybody get involved?
Yeah, so I think that with just the geography of our state, one thing that's really special for Colorado is where our community colleges are positioned geographically. Mm-hmm. And so we have been really cognizant of the fact, too, that even though we're housed at the community college system, we work with every college that offers career and technical education programming. So that even extends our network beyond the 13 colleges and the 37 campuses. And what we're really trying to do is how do those communities work together if they don't have access to these business resources that we're talking about. Mm-hmm. So how do you actually look towards your community to be those industry experts? And then how do you leverage what's happening at the colleges? Because typically your college professors are going to have way more industry experience. And how do you use them as those advisory committee members also to help inform your programs? But how are you reaching out to our other systems? So like our workforce system, mm-hmm. your Chamber of Commerce, all those different industry associations that span the whole state. But how are we making sure we're leveraging technology to do so? Because, you know, if you've ever had to drive from one end of the state to the other, yeah, like we have had the privilege of doing many times,
yes, yeah.
it takes a while, and it actually gives you much bigger appreciation for the fact that every meeting is in Denver.
Right.
So you get this new appreciation for the fact that we need to be better stewards of the technology that we have, but also cognizant of the fact that not everyone has the broadband capabilities that we do in metro areas. So how are we helping them engage? But a lot of that, too, is how do we help them network with those other people that are physically closer than some of those businesses that are either in Denver or in the Springs, in Fort Collins, and down the I-25 corridor? How do we help expand that?
So, and also how can we get creative in terms of teachers with the teacher shortage? And we had an example of some of our teachers in Boise work together. There's probably about 7 of them that do a high school business program, and some of them will teach different subjects depending on their experiences and then collaborate. So a student might have an online class in marketing and have the teacher that he goes to the classroom with teaching accounting. So they've done a good job of trying to be creative with that program.
So is that teachers from different schools and different communities kind of banding together and each teaching what their strengths are?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It is.
And then how is that done? Do they go travel to each community, or they do that over the internet or programs? Or?
They do it over the internet, and they also do it online as well. Yeah.
And what we're seeing too, Otero Junior College, which is in La Junta, so the southeast corner of the state, what they've done a really great job of is partner with the districts that they serve, and for concurrent enrollment classes. So concurrent enrollment is a college course taught while a student is in high school, which could take place physically on the high school campus or physically at the college campus. And so what they're doing, because of geography and because of teacher qualifications, they're actually using a technology called telepresence, where they're beaming the OJC, so the Otero Junior College instructor, physically into the high school classroom. So that student has a teacher from the high school physically there to like actually facilitate, but their learning is happening from the college teacher.
Oh, wow.
So it's opening also their possibilities to gain college credits in a way that's not eating up their commuting time to physically get to campus. And the high school doesn't have to worry about the fact that they might not have someone who's qualified. Because here in Colorado, a lot of our things that transfer to a four-year institution require a master's degree or 18 graduate hours.
Oh.
And a lot of our high school instructors, that wasn't their focus in their program. So now we're trying to figure out a way to get that college instruction to high schoolers to help them along their pathway faster.
So you also, you're looking, a lot of schools are looking for teachers with certain specialties, and with as much teacher shortage that we're dealing with, what are some of the solutions there, creative solutions?
Well, we're looking at different things, but technology also comes into play with...
So I think that one thing that's really cool is that communities, like superintendents, are a little bit more empowered now to make choices when it comes to teacher hiring.
Okay.
Because we have new federal legislation that before you had to be highly qualified in your area, so you had to have gone through a teacher prep program or something like that. They're empowered now to say, well, this is our hiring practice. And you have a credential, which is what we give in career and technical education, that will allow you to be with our students. And what's great is that they're looking to their community and not always thinking of, oh, where are the educators in my community? Where are the retired teachers in my community? They're saying, oh, what about these other skills that other people have? And so a great example of that is a really small school district called Creed, whose superintendent, Liz Richardson, is awesome. And she wanted to revitalize their community and give students choices and options. So she took a survey of her community, and she's like, who has these skills that I can help become a teacher? So she looked at her transportation director and said, you have all these automotive skills, and our students want to learn those. Let's help you become a teacher. There's a wonderful man with the wildlife and some other different things around agriculture. How do you come in and give our students those skills? So we're really trying to empower, especially our rural districts, to think about their community and say, who has these skills that we know students want, to make them more employable, but also keep them in our community, because we need to make sure we have these people with these skills, because we have a colleague that lives near Winter Park, and to get his car repaired, it's going to be a 2-month wait because there's only 2 mechanics in the whole 2-hour radius. And he didn't necessarily want to drive it.
That never occurred to me.
Exactly. So what are we doing to help our communities have the skills that they need to be viable communities in general, beyond high school?
And empower our principals to think sort of outside the box, of not just educators, but people in the community. And we had, in business, we have a new teacher who's from retail, and he's from Walmart, and he is doing an amazing job. We have a mentoring program for new teachers, so we can help them and they can learn how to teach and do the pedagogy and learn through that. And sometimes those types of teachers are some of the very, very best because they have such a great background in their specialty of teaching business. And
that having that, overall, whether it's a lifetime of experience or whatever experience you have in a business, to be able to translate that, to be able to educate, what a I don't know, gift, a prize. It's really valuable.
Definitely. And what's really cool too is we're trying to actually take what we're doing for those people to become teachers and actually just kind of bite-size that for business and industry partners who want to come and experience the classroom, but they're like, whoa, teenagers. I don't know about that.
There's a whole separate challenge, right?
I don't know about that. So how do we get them ready to be guest speakers where they feel comfortable? So what we're trying to do is, because right now we're doing it for teachers, so how do we make that bite-sized chunks and figure out what industry professionals need? So we're actually in the process of really interviewing our people that are long-standing within working with students and saying, what would you have wanted to know before you jumped into this adventure? And how are we leveraging some amazing partnerships that we have with like Junior Achievement, who does this whole intensive, really great professional development for their volunteers to go into the classroom. So how do we leverage those partnerships and make sure that, someone who's done a lot of research around this, how do we honor what their work has been, especially because a lot of those people are probably already their volunteers anyway. And what's really great, I think, is that people, like, after their first time, I feel like they're hooked. Like, when I taught, I have some people come in that I was kind of worried that they just weren't going to have the best day. And then they'd be like, oh, let me look at my calendar before I leave and see when I could come work on a project again. Because what's really cool about our programs is that most of our students produce, so they create something, whether that's a project or some type of actual thing that they could defend to an audience. And so how are we getting real panels of real business and industry partners, almost like Shark Tank style, to come in and have those conversations with students so that they're prepared for when they have to make a pitch to their boss eventually. Because that's a skill set that we know, regardless of what industry you want to go into, regardless of what your post-secondary positioning is for yourself later, you have to have that skill.
Right, right.
Yeah, and as Sarah said, Junior Achievement has been such an amazing partner with CTE, and that's such an easy way to get involved as an individual. If your company is, you're not sure that they want to get involved, but to get involved and to go into the classroom, they have great curriculum and a great training program. And in fact, those are some of the people that you rely on, on your advisory boards, that even get more involved. So it's a great starting place.
Yeah, and we have opportunity. So this is CTE month, February. So we're super excited to be here also. In all of our career and technical student organizations. So as Dana mentioned in the other segment, you might be familiar with FBLA, which is for business, DECA, which is for marketing, FFA, which is for agriculture, tons of other ones, family consumer science. We have FCCLA. And TSA, which, as our colleague always jokes, is not the airport people.
No, not them.
No, not them. It's the Technology Student Association.
Oh, wow.
We have one for healthcare that's called HOSA. And Skills USA, which are our champions in industry. So they do all the skilled trades and technical science related. So we have a CTSO, and hopefully I'm not forgetting one of them. So we have a CTSO for every content area, and their conferences start kicking off in about 2 weeks. And so, again, if you wanted to go to our website and look up career and technical education, we have a whole website dedicated to CTSO, so Career Tech Student Organizations. And you can come judge, and it's a low-level commitment of time, and just kind of see what our students are capable of. And you might even want to hire some of them that are seniors, just saying.
And you might even want to get involved in education, because that's how I started 12 years ago. I was actually a DECA judge and decided it was such an amazing... such a great group. It was so passionate. I was so passionate about it, and the students they learned so much from the experience that I decided, hey, I'm going to switch my career.
Wow. What were you doing before that?
I was actually a retail buyer.
Oh,
so, yeah.
Neat. So, we talk about, let's see, I want to make sure I get this right. Your CTSO is a career technical student organization.
Correct.
Okay, so you've got the students developing their own organizations so they can explore their interests and learn more and create projects and sometimes compete, right?
Yes, so what's great about career tech student organizations is that they're actually formulated at the national level, and then we have a state chapter. And we have wonderful individuals on our team that are our state advisors. We have one here with us named Jen Gervin today, who does FBLA. And what they do is they actually lead our school districts that have their own chapters in doing like regional competitive events, working on the projects at school so they can kind of see where students are at, so they can coach them to be prepared to present in front of people that are not their teacher or not their parents. And for me, that's the best part. I also, when I was in the classroom, I was an FBLA advisor, which is our business organization. And just seeing the transformation of my students from the time when they picked which assignment which thing they were going to compete in, to being on stage at state winning because of those industry interactions they had, where someone other than me, even though they love me as the day is long, but someone else who really did this job would come in and say, that was a great statement. However, if you framed it this way, the judges are going to understand more of what you're saying in your communication and delivery style. And it was just transformational for them to have that other adult that they're not related to or that they don't see every day, giving them that feedback for their development.
Where they feel that they respect both ways, I'm sure, and that input. And it sounds like that helps develop those soft skills that everybody's talking about, too.
Exactly. The 21st century skills are just embedded in what they do. And then also the curriculum is embedded in what they do. So we call it co-curricular.
Okay.
So you'll be learning, you might actually be working on a project like a giant business plan in your classroom, and then you'll actually go and present it and compete with it, and it will be judged, and then you'll learn from that as well. And they have rubrics that are all designed to, at the national level, to meet business competencies or whatever the competency is in the specific CTSO.
And what's really cool is some of those actual competitive events have financial backing from large corporations that say, like Business Plan, for example, what now? So you won this competition. This is a great business plan. How do we help you jumpstart this and actually make something happen with it? Or how do we help you scholarship yourself to further your education so you can make this happen? And that, I think, is what's amazing, is that half the time, because, you know, securing funding is always one of those, like, things that you don't know until the day it's actually going to happen.
Right. And you muddle through it.
And then exactly. And so that look on the student's face when they get a check that's going to be a scholarship for them is just amazing, because that's not what that wasn't their incentive. Their incentive was to do their best, and now they're getting rewarded financially also.
Wow.
And then there are two other pieces of the CTSO, and it's a leadership opportunity. So as your chapter is run, you can be a part of chapter leadership, you can be part of our state leadership, and it even goes all the way to the national level. So you have a lot of opportunities to learn and be a leader, and then also community service. So they try to embed community service projects within their program of works as well.
So they come to them with some, maybe here's a challenge in the community, how can we meet this?
Right.
Let me ask one more thing about the CTSO. Are they available in, you know, throughout the state, or are there going to be parents or other businesses listening to this program saying, how do I get one of those in my community?
Right. So what's great about career and technical student organizations is that they're tied to programs. So, for example, Dana was mentioning all the work we were doing today with our business partners in business and marketing education. So FBLA and DECA are tied to our business and our marketing programs. So if there's a program at the high school, they can have a chapter of these different organizations. And we have, surprisingly enough, like, there are chapters pretty much everywhere that people, like, stumble upon, or they ask their students, you know, that dinner time conversation of, like, oh, is it club day? Like, what are you getting involved in? And so, like Dana mentioned, for us, what's great is that these can take place in the classroom because they're co-curricular. So it's part of our competencies we're trying to meet. So it doesn't, for us, it's an equity piece too, where students don't necessarily have to stay after school if they have a bus situation or if they have to work, because it's part of the class.
And when you're further out in the rural communities,
or athletics.
That's for sure a consideration. There's so many great, you know, organizations, these programs available to help students identify either what they're interested in, what their skills are, or what those opportunities are going to be once they graduate. It's really exciting to know that they can explore these options so early. And really get that idea for what kind of careers are really out there, and especially in our day and age where it's changing constantly.
Right. One thing that's great, so FBLA, which is our student organization for business, today when Jen was sharing opportunities with our business and industry partners at the advisory committee meeting, we actually have a middle school competition for FBLA all the way to a college competition for FBLA. So students can engage at multiple age levels. And what I've always thought was really great is, like Dana mentioned around the leadership component, you'll have a student who was a state officer who then comes back and works with students to help them on their leadership skills. So again, like we were mentioning with the competitive events, if it's a business person giving the feedback, but what's great about the leadership development is we have former peers coming back and giving the feedback about what the organization did for them and the avenues that it helped them achieve that they never would have if they wouldn't have put themselves out there. Because, like, our state officers, like DECA, for example, I mean, they're on stage in front of 5,000 kids.
Wow.
Their own peers trying to lead a meeting, trying to engage a keynote speaker.
Oh, wow.
All those skills that just are mind-blowing. The first time my dad came to a state competition, he was just, he just couldn't even believe that these students that were like 14 years old to 18
were addressing a huge audience.
Were up there like it was nothing.
Wow.
Nothing at all. And those are those skills that we know, regardless of if they want to stay in business and marketing or whichever CTSO they're in, they need those regardless of what industry they go into. And it's just so great that they have access to that.
Oh, absolutely.
And it's every student. So even if you have a student at a level where they're so scared and they don't, for them to attain being able to even walk through a role play in a competition is amazing. And you watch those kids just develop, and it's just so cool to see what they get out of it. And so at any level, like, you don't have to be good at something to be able to do it. The other thing is it's super fun, and it builds team bonding, builds friendships. And I remember we took a gentleman, a boy, to an event, and he was up in Beaver Creek at an invitational, and he was just getting over some emotional things, and he got to go up, and he didn't end up doing his role play. But he came to me and he said, "This is the best experience I've ever had." He said, "I met so many friends here, and I got through my test." And he said, "I've just had an amazing time." So even though he wasn't able to compete because he wasn't ready at that point, he had the experience of a lifetime.
Oh, that's amazing.
So
that's great. I really like that idea of them being able to present and address an audience.
Right.
Like you mentioned, that's an incredible experience.
Right. And I think too, like Dana mentioned, just that life experience that that has to happen organically, and we provide that avenue for it to happen. When I was an advisor, I lived in the state of Georgia, and I had students that had never seen a 2-story building.
Oh, really?
Just because of where they were physically from. So taking them to downtown Atlanta for a conference, to a building that had 60 floors and an elevator, just the exposure to those pieces that they didn't have access to anything like that in their hometown, but they also never saw any students that didn't look like themselves either. So it produces that way to really see what diversity and inclusion and acceptance is like, because you're part of something, just like a team, just like team sports, just like any of those pieces. And that like camaraderie that you feel at the end of the day, because they're all interested in business or they're all interested in technology. So it's their people.
Yeah, so there's that connection already.
There is.
That, okay, you're like me because we're interested in this. Let's find out how else we're alike.
Right, and I love, so TSA, which is our Technology Student Association, just even watching the students like figure out how to get Wi-Fi to everybody that's in the lobby, because they're all trying to do a hackathon, or they're all trying, and just this problem solving that happens because they love what they're doing, is something that we can't just make up. Like, the students make it up themselves because of their community.
Right. I like that idea that you're able to present them with the challenge and they find their way through it.
Right.
To overcome
it's very rewarding as a teacher when you see a freshman who is a shy, introverted person, and their senior year they're talking to a giant group of parents at a parent meeting that they've actually organized. That's pretty cool.
That's amazing. We're talking today with Sarah Heath and Dana Anderson with the Colorado Community College System, and you've just done your presentation for the Colorado Secondary Business Education Advisory Meeting. What kind of businesses are involved in this advisory board or committee?
Well, because of the wide umbrella that business takes, we invited several different types of businesses. So we have anything from, and most of them were associations. So we might have had the Marketing Association, the Association of Accountants. We also did some different businesses in general. Let me think. So like a wide variety.
Yeah.
And then too, like some different nonprofits that support overall like financial literacy development and things like that we know, regardless of which niche of business. So if it's marketing or if it's accounting, everyone needs to understand ethics and basic financial literacy. So a lot of those different pieces, as well as those really homegrown, like the entrepreneurship pieces, because we know that those skills our students need too.
And for each of these businesses, finding their ways to contribute to be a part of the education process, right? They're really there to help identify what skills are going to be needed in the coming years, what jobs are coming up, because I think we say this how many times this week, that we're getting students ready for jobs that we haven't even heard of yet.
Right.
Right. So having those businesses involved that know the spectrum of what's on the way.
Right, and I think that one thing that we would love to be a takeaway for anyone that's listening is, again, there are so many ways you can get involved. We touched on some that are a high level of commitment, so actually providing an internship or apprenticeship for a student, all the way to just actually coming for a couple hours to one of our state conferences to judge, or just connecting with your local education provider to see how you can get engaged. So please visit our website, and we would love to connect you with your local school if you don't already have that connection.
Yep, and that's cccs.edu or the community college, Colorado Community College system, so look them up. And we thank you both so much for joining us today and giving us all of this great information. This week, our focus is on secondary education and sponsored by Talent Found. So we thank them for being a part of this as well. Thank you both for being here.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
And thanks for listening. Have a great rest of your day.